Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. This is Dominic Sicali, Mafia Roundtable. Thank you for coming on, viewing again. Thank you for all the questions, the love and support showing through your comments. And this story is going to be about the downfall of the Bonanno crime family. With Joe Massino now off the streets and his entire administration basically cooperating against him, Joe has definitely an uphill battle fighting the case going to trial. And myself, Vinny Basciano, Tony Green, Anthony Urso, Joe Camarano Sr., and the entire administration at that time has Joe's back. And everybody out there is supporting our boss to fight the case, stay strong, and win the case. Vinny's actually speaking to Joe Massino's attorneys, constantly in touch with them. He visits them once a week to assure that Joe is getting proper representation. And Vinny at one time even sweetened the deal that if they beat the case for Joe Massino, Vinny will give them a bonus of $100,000. We're trying to keep everything tight in the crime family, numerous meetings, everybody's gathering together. At the time, I was just an associate, but they have me with all the higher ups in the family. I was that well respected amongst those peers in the organization. Then shortly after Joe's arrested, I get put in and I become a soldier in the Bonanno crime family. And then immediately, Tony Urso recommended I become Vinny's acting captain, which Joe Massino approved and elevated me to that stature. And so now I'm part of the group. I basically sit there and I'm real quiet. I don't talk much, speak much regarding anything. I'm just listening, absorbing everything. At one point, Tony Urso makes a statement. It was just a statement. It wasn't even intentional. He wasn't even acting on it. I guess it was out of frustration, where he tells a bunch of us that we should harm the children. We had a few members, let me explain that. We have a few members in the crime family that were captains, and their sons were also straightened out. Those captains were ratting on Joe Massino. So Tony Urso, being their sons are made members in our family, they're part of the life, they're part of the streets. So they're not innocent civilians. So Tony Urso passed the comment, we should harm those children. But he just said it in jest. It was more out of frustration. It really had no intent on acting on it. And then we're continuously having meetings. Everybody's extremely leery of one another, especially people trying to come in now to get close to the inner circle because we don't know who's cooperating. We had our first cooperator in the Bonanno crime family in 2002. Joe Massino prided, that he rebuilt the crime family after the Donnie Brasco incident where the FBI agent infiltrated the Bonanno crime family. And even back then, there was never a made member in the Bonannos that cooperated. So Joe did bring the family back to stardom, that even the Genovese crime family members, the high-ranking members, had stated that the Bonannos were basically the top family at that time. And then 2002, just like the stock market, the crash of the Bonanno crime family happened because Joe had put guys in his inner circle that should have never even been in the life or have those positions, that type of position. And, we were just trying to gather up, rebuild, strengthen everything. Tony Green was our acting boss at that time. Joe Camarano Sr. was the underboss and consigliere. He had two titles. And then, of course, Vinny was a captain, powerful one at that. I was an acting captain. So all those meetings that we would have, I was present, even when I was an associate. They allowed me in out of, I guess, respect. They liked the way I conducted myself, the way I handled myself. I kept my mouth shut. I really didn't voice an opinion unless I was asked. And one time, for instance, James Taglione, aka Big Lou, he was living in Florida, contacted Tony Urso that he wanted to come in and he wanted to be part of the administration because he was a captain. He wants to come onto the scene. Made up every excuse. He came in, they sat down with him. And I think it was Tony Green and Joe Camarano Jr., Sr., sat down with him on, I think, 2 occasions. And then all of a sudden he wanted to meet up with Vinny, mentioned Vinny. And his gripe was to those guys because they were telling him, we have this under control, we don't need you, go back to Florida. And he exerted his power as a captain, that he was part of the crime family. He goes back many years with Joe, and he wants to help out since we're in basically a restructuring phase right now. So one day, Vinny and I went to go meet Tony Green and Joe Camarano Sr. We're at a diner sitting down. And again, I'm sitting in the back, quiet, not saying anything. And they mentioned to Vinny how this Big Lou wants to meet up with him. And Vinny and I previously spoke about it. Vinny shared everything with me, and I told him my feelings. As they're going back and forth, Vinny says, because they couldn't figure it out. Like, why all of a sudden, Lou's been out there many years, and now all of a sudden he's exerting that he wants to come into the family and be part of the administration, which is understandable. So during that meeting, they're going back and forth. So finally, Vinny mentions, that's all right, I'll go meet him. I'm not going to say anything out of order. I'm not doing anything illegal. That's the way Vinny would always speak. And so what? He wants to see me, I'll meet up with him. So they turn around to me, Tony Green, and says, what are your thoughts, kid? I look at him, I said, I really have no opinion. He said, come on, tell me your thoughts. I know you have an opinion. You don't have to be politically correct here. I'm asking you to tell me. I said, nah, Tony, I really don't know. So Vinny turns around, Dom, go ahead, tell him. Because Vinny knew what I was going to say. And what was going to come out of my mouth could get me killed real quick. So I know the life. So you have to be careful. You have to weigh things out before you say them. So Vinny gave me the okay, the nod to go ahead. So I said, well, guys, with all due respect, Big Lou has to be a rat. And they looked at me. It makes no sense. When Joe Massino was out here, he stayed buried in Florida. He never came up. Now all of a sudden, we don't know who's who's cooperating, who's doing what. There's FBI all over the place. The whole entire administration, we know more, the whole entire administration is cooperating. And we don't know the next group of arrests, who they're going to be. So you're telling me this guy's sitting in Florida, peaceful, no limelight on him. He wants to come up into New York while all the heat is on us, all the exposure, we have FBI all over the place. It makes no sense. This guy has to be a rat. He has to be no good. Once I said that, I finished. Tony Green, Joe Camarano Sr., they're shaking their head. They go, we feel the same way. Thank you. We just wanted to hear it from a different perspective. Somebody who's not as close to the whole group as we are. Just basically, even though I wasn't an outsider, it was an outsider's view, a younger view. I would say innocent eyes of the Mafia. So they agree. So now Vinny's going to meet Big Lou. The day of the meeting, I told Vinny and I already had planned. I got there about 4 hours early to the location. Vinny and I had a pager code system. So we left off. I'm going to take surveillance of the place, counter surveillance. If I see activity, it was around, let's say 10 a.m. Vinny was supposed to meet him at the diner. I was there about 6 a.m. If I see unusual activity anytime a little before 10 a.m. and afterwards, I would go to the payphone and put my code in, put 911 into Vinny's pager. If I didn't see any weird activity after an hour, I would go to payphone and put zeros in, meaning the zeros would cancel everything out, that there is no law enforcement around. Excuse me. So with that, I'm doing my surveillance. It had just snowed a few days prior, so the streets were real slushy, that New York cold. And as I'm sitting there looking at the watch, all of a sudden, it's around maybe 9:45. I just start seeing a few cars that are just circling around in and out. And then at 10 o'clock, I see a lot of cars constantly circling around. And the cars, you could tell, listening to Life, you know FBI agent cars. They're usually four-door cars. They're the SUVs blacked out. And all these cars that I'm seeing, nobody's getting out of them. They're making basically U-turns in the parking lot. They're making it look like they're looking at signs or they got lost. The activity wasn't normal. And also I noticed they were all spotless. They were clean. Everybody else, if anybody lived in New York, they know after a snowstorm with the slush, there's all that wear and tear on the car, that film, that white film that stays onto the car. All these cars were perfectly clean. Right away, I go to the payphone, and I page Vinny maybe about 4 or 5 times, 911, 911. With that, Vinny's in there probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours. All of a sudden, Vinny comes out, knows where I was located. He walked over to my car. He gets in. We leave. I said, "Did you get my page?" That was the first thing. And I paged Vinny, might have been about 10:10, 10:15. So Vinny had ample time. I doubt if Vinny even got past "how you doing?" "It's nice seeing you again." Just basic introductions. He said, "Absolutely, I got all the pages. Thank you. I knew it. I knew this motherfucker was wearing a wire." So Vinny, then we went to go meet Tony Green and Joe Camerano Sr. Vinny tells them everything, that these are Vinny's words. "Bo, I didn't say anything out of line to him. I told him everything I do is legit. I'm building homes. I'm doing real estate. We have an investment company. Everything's legit. Why would I do anything illegal on the street? It's just nickel and diming. With the construction company, I'm making millions of dollars. We have over $15 million right now on the table with another $30 million. And he's going into it. And these are roundabout numbers from the best of my recollection of hearing the tapes and from what Vinny was telling us. Then Vinny goes into, he said, "Well, I told him, I don't even know if he said this, so I'm not going to mention it because it'll come later on." But Vinny did go to say before they left, Big Lou addressed him. He said, "Hey, look, I have some stolen art. I have some cougar ants. I have stolen jewelry, real cheap, pennies on the dollar. It might be a few $1 million worth of stuff. I could give it to you for maybe $200,000, $300,000. Then he says, "Bo, absolutely not. I don't do anything illegal. I would never touch that. I'm going to jeopardize myself for something like that. No, Lou, I'm sorry. I'm just not going to do it." Also, Lou brings up, and I forgot this is also an important thing. And as I'm talking, things are coming to mind. Remember, this is close to 20 years ago. Lou mentions that, "Hey, I have somebody in the FBI. Here's a 302. And the 302 basically says that Vinny Basciano and others shotgunned somebody in Throg's Neck. The guy was looking to kidnap Vinny's son." Vinny says, "Bo, absolutely. That wasn't me. You kidding me? I would never do something like that." So Vinny's convincing them, but Vinny sometimes doesn't know when to shut his mouth. He turns around, Bo. And furthermore, if I did something like that, they would have no surveillance. They wouldn't know what car was used, who was there. So they would have nothing on me anyway. So with all that, Vinny's telling us, we said, all right, good. You said the right things. Maybe about a few months after that, comes out, Big Lou gets arrested. And I think with that arrest, that's when Tony Green, Joe Camarano Sr., everybody else got arrested too. Joe Massino sends word out. Vinny's now our acting boss. He upped me to an official captain. And that was it. Those are the only two moves Joe Massino made. So Vinny's the type, you give him control, he's going to run it tight and right. So Vinny takes it upon himself. He takes Michael Mancuso, Mikey Knows, from an acting captain. Mikey was running Patty DiFilippo's crew, handling them. He elevates Michael to an acting underboss in our family. Vinny had asked me my thoughts about it. I told him my thoughts, but Vinny just felt, let me put Michael there. So I could control Michael. Michael will do what I tell him to do. And it's just another support level that would always back Vinny, which was a smart move. I understand his move for that. And then he elevated Anthony Rubito, who was a captain, to our consigliere. And then Nicky Santoro to an official captain. Nicky Santoro was Anthony Rubito's acting captain. So Vinny's tightening things up. And Vinny told those three men, I'm going to send word into Joe, tell him what I did. And at the end of the day, it's Joe's decision. If Joe says no, I'm going to have to knock you guys back down. And Joe put in position who he wants. Word came back, Joe okayed it. Let Vinny do. Basically, Vinny now had the reins of the crime family. And messages were going back and forth with that. In the interim now, we get the tapes, Big Lou tapes. So Vinny and myself, we go to a lawyer who is also representing Massino and passing back messages, Tommy Lee. We go to his office and we sit down, plays the tapes, and we're listening, hearing the tapes. Vinny turned and beat red, and I'm thinking, oh my God, how the fuck could he do this? Kept my mouth shut though. Don't say anything. We leave Tommy Lee's office. Vinny turns to me and says, Bo, I am so sorry. I really didn't realize I said that. I apologize. I'm just really sorry. And I believe Vinny, listen, the man loved me. We loved each other. We were that close. We were with each other 24/7. So I knew he wouldn't do anything intentionally. But Vinny's on tape also. Not only is he talking about what I just said prior, he also stated, he said, well, Lou, look at me. I'm an official captain in this family. Dominic, who you never met, he's my acting captain. Dominic knows my every move. Dominic knows everything I'm thinking. If something happens, Dominic half the times takes it upon himself to react and do things. And basically, these are my moves that I would do. And with that, Vinny's like, I'm just so sorry. At that time, the feds had no clue I was even straightened out. Now it comes out in the paper with the tapes. I'm a capo in the Bonanno crime family. From my father to a government informant who worked for the government for 20 years, Joe Barone, to all my friends, nobody had a clue. When they heard that, everybody was shocked. Oh my God, you're straightened out, you're a captain? I'm like, guys, stop the bullshit. I'm Dominic. I'm close to Vinny. They got this all mixed up. Nobody believed it. It was a crock of shit, and they knew it. But I never admitted anything. So with that, now I'm with Vinny, public enemy number one. From everybody thinking I'm an associate, they know I have a strong position in the family. And it was just putting everything together. Now, Vinny sets up a meeting for all the captains because Vinny's implementing some strict procedures in our family. Because, again, we don't know who's cooperating, who's doing what, who's not, everything is just real shaky. So Vinny's putting in protocol, good protocol. And I'll go into that later on a podcast, especially about that captain's meeting, because what Vinny did for that meeting when everybody showed up is totally unprecedented for organized crime and the members. It's actually insulting. But Vinny was making a point, and it was just, I could understand why Vinny did that. So as Vinny, after the captain's meeting, and again, I'll stay tuned for a later podcast with that because that's a story in itself. Vinny's just tightening up the ship, getting everything under control, meeting all the other captains, setting everything up, putting in strict procedures that no members in the organization are to go to other members without the okay of a captain, so he could control things better. So if there's any other cooperators out there, people working with the government, we'll know about it. The whole time, Vinny's going back and forth with Joe's lawyers, the investigators, making sure everything's going okay. And Joe's getting ready to fight the case. So he's basically in court maybe every other day, going over whatever motions they're going through. And we're tightening up the ship. We have everything under control. Joe's getting his money, everything that's coming to him, sent to him directly. So Vinny's having everything buttoned up and basically loving that top spot. I'm loving my position. And we're just getting everything in order. So Vinny even tries getting all the other bosses together to sit down. Basically to restructure everything, try to tighten everything in organized crime, especially after what happened to our family. And then all of a sudden, Vinny gets a cryptic message from Joe Massino. And Vinny just tells me, Dom, get ready, gear up. There's going to be a massive hit we're going to have to do. It's going to be in Manhattan, and it's going to be a serious hit. So stay tuned for that one. That'll be part 2 of this when Joe Massino flipped The Last Don wore a wire. Hit subscribe to be the first group to hear the story when it comes out, part 2. Thank you. Thank everyone for the comments. It's greatly appreciated. Until part 2, have a good evening, good morning, good night. Peace out.